We are all faced with unique circumstances this Thanksgiving weekend and into the fall and winter.
Tonight, a word of caution from Ottawa as COVID-19 cases continue to rise. We hear what caused a dam to burst in North Vancouver last week.
We want to work together with the school divisions to create or close that gap and try to improve and get more Indigenous teachers within the schools.
And a new education report out of Manitoba shows how many Indigenous teachers are needed to reflect the population. Good evening. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Melissa Ridgen. The Government of Canada gave an update on the COVID-19 pandemic today, and it doesn't look good. They gave words of warning for people to stay home during the Thanksgiving weekend. Jamie Pashagumskum has that and the Fed's response to the ongoing pandemic.
Most concerning to the government is the potential that this second wave has the possibility to surpass the first wave of COVID-19.
We're at a tipping point in this pandemic. Not only is the second wave underway, yesterday we hit the highest daily recorded cases, well above what we saw this spring. I know this is discouraging, especially going into Thanksgiving weekend.
To combat the second wave, Trudeau announced rent relief for small businesses and a continued wage subsidy. Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs Dominic LeBlanc announced help for Canada's north. Each territory will get a top-up fund, and northern air carriers that serve all three territories will get a combined $41 million.
Our government also understands just how critical northern air services are, from ensuring food supply chains remain intact to providing medical care and transportation needs to some of Canada's most remote communities.
The Fed's also announced $100 million to help improve access to food for vulnerable Canadians. As for Thanksgiving weekend, Canada's Chief Public Health Officer, Theresa Tam, said the future is in the hands of Canadians.
We are all faced with unique circumstances this Thanksgiving weekend and into the fall and winter. This is often a time for family gatherings and celebrations inside cozy homes. But our celebrations need to look different this year. Keep it small, keep it safe, and protect your families, friends, and yourselves.
Trudeau said another shutdown, like the one in April, will not be necessary because Canadians know more now about avoiding the spread of COVID-19. Jamie Pashagumskum, APTN National News, Ottawa.
To Southern Ontario now, where a judge has extended 2 injunctions against members of 6 nations who are occupying a construction site in Caledonia. They say it's unsurrendered Haudenosaunee territory, and this dispute goes back to July. A land claim against the federal and Ontario governments has been before the courts for decades. Schuyler Williams is named on the injunctions and represented himself in court. Here's his reaction to today's decision.
You know, it's if we leave here, the development goes forward. And to extinguish land claims by expecting folks to vacate our own lands is absolutely ridiculous. And the judge alluded to the abusive process that we are using to continue staying here on the lands. Like, the abusive process is on them. And to continue to enforce those injunctions that in an inherently prejudicial system that has been well documented. And I think that we as a community have said no and we're going to stay here.
For weeks now, tensions between Mi'kmaq and non-Mi'kmaq fishers on the East Coast have been tense. In pursuing a moderate livelihood, Mi'kmaq have endured vandalism and harassment, even though their treaty right to do so was upheld 21 years ago in the Marshall decision. Today, APTN News asked Prime Minister Trudeau when the situation in Atlantic Canada will be resolved. He agreed that 21 years is too long to wait for recognized rights to come into force, and said that his government is working towards a resolution.
This is a situation that is extremely important to resolve peacefully, That's why the Minister of Fisheries and others are engaged in discussions and negotiations on a way forward that will be fair for everyone. But we recognize the rights enshrined in the Marshall decision, the rights of Indigenous peoples, and we will continue to work hard to defend them.
They called it an Indigenous Day of Rage Against Colonialism. A group of about 60 people gathered in front of the Supreme Court of Canada. While practicing social distancing and wearing masks, they were there to show their support for land defenders and in their various struggles against colonialism. The most popular, based on signage, was for the Wet'suwet'en in British Columbia. The same day, Prime Minister Trudeau was asked about their message, and he said that he shares their impatience.
But there is much more to do, and we will continue to work hand in hand with Indigenous peoples. Not just Indigenous peoples want to see this happen, but non-Indigenous peoples as well want Canada to turn its page on its colonial past, and that's what we're all working very hard on together.
Sylvie D'Amour is no longer Quebec's acting Minister of Indigenous Affairs. During a news conference held Friday today, Premier François Legault appointed a former police officer to take her place. The announcement comes amidst the uproar over Joyce Echaquan's death. Replacing her is former Montreal police officer and Army reservist Ian Lafreniere. Legault hopes that having a new team will renew efforts to implement the Vienne Commission report recommendations, one that revealed a fundamental distrust of police officers among First Nations. When asked what his first move as minister will be, Lafreniere had this to say.
You're not going to like my answer because, to be honest, I'm going to keep that for myself for the moment. Why that is? Because I want to talk to First Nations first. I don't want to send my plan, my examples right now, because the most important thing is to get that together, to work together on that, not to impose my my view. I got numerous examples, but I want to make sure it's come from nations, so that's why I'm going to talk to them. This is my first priority.
Time for us to take a commercial break, but coming up, the cause of a deadly dam disaster on Squamish territory last week. Welcome back. Human error has been identified as the cause of deadly release of water from the Cleveland Dam last week in North Vancouver. One person was killed, 4 others were injured by the wall of water. The Squamish Nation has been asking for safety measures on the dam for years. Joining us from North Vancouver is Squamish Nation Councilor Wilson Williams. Mr. Williams, so yesterday a committee for Metro Vancouver announced that it was human error that was the cause for the release of the water last week from the Cleveland Dam. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, you know, some mixed emotions. It was very challenging just to wait this long, you know, to hear some news, but respectfully getting things in order from Metro, I understand that. But, you know, the news that came out, I think, is not a surprise either. I think using the word malfunction at the first end and clarifying that with human error, relating that to the sort of programming technical box or what's have you, the computer system, is what was first thought to be the issue on the front end. But yeah, definitely some mixed feelings.
You know, knowing that one life was lost and another person is still missing, what safeguards is the Squamish Nation asking for along the river? Yeah, definitely first and foremost, the beginning of some healthy dialogue in regards to rebuilding a relationship that has had its challenges in the past, and you know, getting to the right tables of letting our voice be heard. You know, opening that door to proper and efficient dialogue, and you know, coming up with a strategic plan, especially along our reserve lands down here and West Van along the river before the water meets the ocean there. But definitely getting to the table. I commend them for reaching out to our administrative team and communicating efficiently over the past 5 days or so in regards to our nation. But definitely we got to definitely meet and get to the foundation of building a strong relationship for the future, especially for our community. You have your own personal experience of unexpected rising waters on that river. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes, for sure. Definitely this, the rising water the other week is triggered some traumatic experience that I had back in 1997. Just up along the waters here behind me, what we call the Green Bridge, 10:30 at night, you could imagine how dark it is, and all I heard was some thundering sounds and echoes through the valley of the high end of the river coming down, and as I looked up, I just seen a black, you could say, cloud coming down like a 3D movie, and I just ran for my life, and there was another gentleman on shore just screaming to get out at me. And it's probably one of the only times I've ever fished alone. My mom ever after that, thank God I was safe and saved myself, but she's forever mad that I'd ever come back to the river again, but I'm born and raised here. And thankfully I survived, and when the water did catch my legs, I got swept down about 12 to 15 feet and was able to reach onto a rock and pull myself to shore. And I lost all my fishing gear, my fishing bag, and my lacrosse stick. At that time I was adamant player then, but you know, it was very traumatic, and I ended up catching a bus home, not knowing what to do, still in shock. But of course I went home to the comfort of my parents and our house.
Well, thanks for sharing that with us, and we hope that this issue with the water controls there gets sorted out sooner rather than later. Thanks. You have a great afternoon.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you very much for having me.
We have to take another break, but when we come back, Manitoba isn't making the grade. The number of Indigenous teachers from grade school to university isn't representative of the province's population.
In public school, when I've done my practicum, there is a lack of Indigenous educators, especially teaching language.
Welcome back. Now it's time for our photo of the day. This one was sent in by Jason Kirshane. He works for us here at APTN in our Master Control Department. It's a rare view. Not many of us get a chance to get out on a boat to fish on the Red River as it winds its way through Winnipeg. Looking pretty serene there. Trolling the river on a beautiful autumn evening. So we want you to send us your photo of the day. Maybe it can be our photo of the day. Send us what you got. You can email your shot to share@aptn.ca, and we'll do our best to get it on the air. Well, it's time for a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Off to the east coast, we got 10 and sunshine for Fredericton, 11 and cloud for St. John's. Kuujjuaq, 2 and snow. Inukjuak, 3 and snow. Gaspé, 10 and some showers there. Quebec City, 20 and rain. Peterborough, 23 and a mix of sun and cloud. North Bay, 16 and showers. Sioux Lookout, snow and 7. Big Trout Lake, snow and 2. The Paw, some showers and 9 degrees. Puckatawagan can expect some snow and 1 degree. 15 and sunshine for Winnipeg. Barons River, 9 and cloud. 26 for Saskatoon, nice and sunny there. 24s for Regina and Estevan. 10s for L'Orange and Buffalo Narrows and showers there. Snow and 3 for Uranium City. Pair of 7s for High Level and Fort Chip and some snow there. 16 and showers for Edmonton, 22 and sunny for Lethbridge. Kamloops and Penticton, some showers and 16 degrees, 14 and rain for Vancouver. Fort Nelson, 5 and cloud, 9s for Prince George, Prince Rupert, showers there. Beaver Creek, 3 degrees, mix of sun and cloud, 5 and some snow for Whitehorse. Wauhee, snow, 3 degrees. Norman Wells, Wrigley, and Yellowknife, 4 degrees and cloud. Fort McPherson and Inuvik, snow and -1, -7 and snow for Sax Harbor. Nunyat, -2, mostly sunny skies. Arviat, -1 and sunshine there. Igloolik, 0 and snow. Clyde River, 2 and snow. Pangertung, cloud and 7 degrees. To Winnipeg now, where despite the city having the highest urban Indigenous population in the country, there is a lack of Indigenous educators working in the city's school system. That's according to a new report released this week, which shows the underrepresentation of Indigenous educators doesn't stop at the public school level. It's found its way to the university levels as well. Brittany Hobson explains.
When Rob Riel began his journey into education 25 years ago, he kept his Métis identity hidden.
I really didn't announce that I was Indigenous because I didn't know if that was going to be good or bad. I was scared.
At the time, there weren't many Indigenous educators, and even less Indigenous students going into education. Since then, Riel has embraced his Métis roots and has made it his career to increase Indigenous representation in the school system. Riel is the Director of Indigenous Education for the Winnipeg School Division.
Now having conversations with my family and my parents on who I am and identity, I really think it's an opportunity now to be proud of who you are as an Indigenous person moving forward.
Even though things have changed in the decades since Riel began his career, a new report shows there's still a long way to go. According to the Winnipeg Indigenous Executive Circle, First Nations, Métis, and Inuit educators are underrepresented in the city's school systems. Trevor Lafort is a co-chair for the Circle.
We want to work together with the school divisions to create or close that gap and try to improve and get more Indigenous teachers within the schools.
The report estimates the city would have to hire an additional 570 Indigenous teachers to properly reflect the Indigenous population in Winnipeg schools. Lafort says it's important for Indigenous youth to see themselves in leadership roles.
To have someone who is Indigenous and who looks like them and who has gone through some of the things that they have, to have them as a role model or inspiration, I think you can't put a value on how beneficial that is to youth.
The report also shows there is a lack of Indigenous students pursuing education in post-secondary.
I'm from Gimli. Maga Winnipeg ok Niwi Ginme Gwats. I live in Winnipeg at the moment.
Cameron Adams goes to the University of Winnipeg. When he graduates, he wants to teach Cree.
In public school, when I've done my practicum, there is a lack of Indigenous educators, especially teaching language. That's something I'm passionate about.
Adams believes there needs to be more resources for Indigenous students.
We need to make sure there's increased supports, but also push people to learn their languages, learn about their cultures, but as well as want to teach that so you can pass it on and make that number turn itself on its head.
The report features 10 calls to action, including the development and implementation of employment equity policies and enrollment targets for post-secondary schools. Brittany Hobson, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Season 12 of APTN Investigates kicks off tonight with the first of a two-part look at climate change. The video journalist who brings you this story, Rob Smith, joins us now. Hi, Rob. Rob, climate change is a story that has been extensively covered by APTN in the 20 years we've been around. Why do this story now?
Well, Melissa, basically it was fear and anger. A couple of years ago, I've been living with this story for a couple of years, and there was scary headlines coming out in 2018 about hothouse Earth and the new threshold that new research had shown that we're a lot closer to true disaster than we had originally thought. That new threshold is a 1.5 degree rise above pre-industrial revolution levels, and earlier models had shown we were going to get some of these really horrific effects happening near the end of the century. This new 1.5 line in the sand is coming in 2030, so definitely within our lifetimes, just a decade away.
So what did you find out when researching this? Like, are we at least making progress, stepped towards fixing our behavior?
There was an odd resignation, both from, we try to talk to people on the ground and try to talk to the experts, and for the most part, there was this odd resignation that we're just going to have to deal with the adaptation as opposed to putting the brakes on this thing. We've missed the window to effectively battle this, and even up in Nunavut, out with a hunter up there, Josh Alderud, and he was saying maybe we're just going to have to live through this. And he's seen the ocean come closer and closer to his village. He's seen less and less ice. He's seen his food that he hunts go further and further away and change their patterns. So while we have that line of 1.5 coming in a decade, it's important to note that people are really feeling the effects now. It's not something that's happening in the future. It's happening right now, and people are really feeling the effects.
Well, it's interesting that a lot of what we've seen has been how do we try to put the brakes on this, and it looks like we've turned the page now, and it's like I guess how are we just going to cope with it in the end? What else can we expect to see in part one?
Well, we like I said earlier, we try to focus on what's happening now, and so we went to visit Telegraph Creek in northern British Columbia, where a forest fire in 2018 ripped through their village. There was an evacuation. People lost homes. So we visited there a year later in the aftermath to see how they were coping, to see how they were rebuilding, and to listen to the stories, the harrowing stories about what they went through to evac, to escape the fire, to come back into the fire, to help firefighters, to fight the fire itself, and so there is a lot of pain, but a lot of heroism exhibited from that small town in northwestern British Columbia.
Well, can't wait to see part one of Burning Down the House tonight on APTN Investigates right after the news. As I said, you can see part one of Burning Down the House tonight on APTN Investigates right after the news. And that is your National Indigenous News for this long weekend Friday. You can stay up to date with APTN News app on your phone or visit our website, aptnnews.ca. I'm Melissa Ridgen. Have a great night, and I'll see you back here tomorrow with your APTN News Weekend. And again, do not touch that remote because an all-new APTN Investigates is on right now.